All right, welcome to Pro Football's first 50 years, where we take the past and we bring it back to life. Now, you can go on, and I'm strictly talking the first 50 years here, from 1920 to 1970. You can go online and look up games. I mean, especially if you're going back to the 20s and the 30s. And you can find like a box score from a game. Obviously who won, who lost. Maybe who scored a touchdown, how far the field goal was that somebody kicked, what the attendance was, obviously what stadium the game was played at. You might be able to find the starting lineups for both teams. But exactly what happened during the game? Well, thanks to old newspaper articles, we get to take a little bit of a deeper dive into each and every game during the first 50 years of professional football. Little news flash here for you. There ain't no fancy videos going on there or nothing like that. All there is you and me for the next 30 to 60 minutes. If that's all right with you, let's get it on. And today's game, well, shall we say, I can't say went back home, but somebody went back home for a brief short stay. And this would be the only time during the regular season that the New York Giants would actually beat Vince Lombardi in the football game. They beat him earlier in the exhibition. I think that was the only time also that the Giants beat the Packers in an exhibition game, either while Vince Lombardi was coaching. And this includes also when Lombardi coached the Redskins in 1969. The Redskins, not in the exhibition season, but during the regular season, the Redskins beat the Giants, I think it was 20-14. They played in Washington. So this was the only time that the New York Giants would beat their former coach, who spent 5 seasons with them, Vince Lombardi. So Green Bay Packers traveled to Yankee Stadium to take on the Giants November 1st, 1959. And this was a very defensive game, shall we say. The Giants defense was the best in the league that year. The Giants were like coming, they were like about as good as they were going to be. And then a few years later, they started tailing off. And boy, when they tailed off, they tailed off and they landed and they just, from 1964 to 1980, 2 winning seasons, no playoff appearances. So they were like the height of it from 1956 to 1963. Those were the good times for the New York Giants. So they were like right about the middle of it. The Green Bay Packers were getting ready. They were a rocket. They had the Lombardi rocket. It was igniting and it was getting ready to take off. This would be the first of many, many wonderful seasons for the Green Bay Packers, Vince Lombardi, and all of that, and their fan base. It wouldn't make the playoffs this year, but obviously they had a winning record. The following season, they were in the championship game. So, obviously we all know how things went for Vince Lombardi, but this was the only time the Giants beat Vince Lombardi during the regular season. The next time the Giants would actually beat the Packers was in 1971. If you ever go one of the craziest games you're ever going to, just a bananas game, crazy game. First week of 1971 season. If you ever, was it this week in the NFL or whatever it is with Tom Brookshire and Pat Summerall, they got highlights of it. I'm just so crazy. Even the Packers coach, Dan Devine, he got a broken leg on the sideline. One of the Giant players, I think, went out of bounds and hit him, knocked him down, and he got carried off on a stretcher, broke a leg. It was just a crazy game. But the Giants wouldn't beat the Packers at all during the 60s. So, but let's go over let's show you the schedules for each team and all that. The Packers started off 3-0, and it was odd, although there was only 12 teams. The Packers, after 3 weeks of the season, were the only team that was undefeated. They were 3-0. But they were a very streaky team in 1959, including the final 2 exhibition games you just see here, right? The final 2 exhibition games. They beat the Redskins and they beat the Steelers. They would win the next 3. So they won 5 games in a row once again, including the final 2 exhibition games, which obviously don't count, but they won 5 in a row. Then they lost 5 in a row. This would be one of them. The Giants would beat them on November 1st. November 1st, 1959, 20-3 at Yankee Stadium. So the Packers would go from 3-0 to 3-5. But the Lombardi magic started kicking in. Also, one of the things was I believe it was after this game here that Bart Starr was not the starting quarterback for the Packers. Going into the season, the Packers had 4 quarterbacks, and no idea. Yeah, Bart Starr was like a 15th round selection. So, I mean, it was like nobody. There wasn't like, Otto Graham was your quarterback, or, Y.A. Tittle, or so. Yeah, there was none of that. Norm Van Brocklin, It was like he went into camp and he was kind of had 4 quarterbacks. Babe Pirelli got let go about halfway through the exhibition season. So brought it down to 3. But Lamar McCann, oh yeah, that future Hall of Famer himself, Lamar McCann, was the starting quarterback for the Packers for the first 7 games of the season. Now he had some highs, he had some lows, But after the 4th loss in a row, Bart Starr got put in there, and he would lose this game here, a tough one, to the Colts, who would eventually be the NFL champions in 1959. They beat the Giants 31-16 at Memorial Stadium in the championship game in 1959. But then they would win the Final 4. So they, just regular season games. They would start off 3-0, the Packers here. And they would go 3-5, and then they would win their Final 4 to end the season 7-5. So things were really, really obviously looking up for Green Bay, especially having a winning season was phenomenal. Now, this would also be the first time that Jim Taylor would be in the lineup. After week 2, I guess it was maybe just before the 3rd week of the game of the season, Jim Taylor, from what I can find out, was cooking up some bacon apparently at his house, and he burned his one hand and his foot really badly with some bacon grease, and he missed 3 games. So he was coming back in the lineup for this week here. He only had a couple carries. But obviously the last couple of weeks, the Packers, their running game, really missed them. Paul Hornung was trying to carry the load, but Paul Hornung always seemed to have something wrong, banged up here, banged up there, and so the Packers, their running game wasn't bad, wasn't too good in this game though, but it really needed Jim Taylor. And if we look at the Giants now, interestingly, the Packers. The Western Division was really tight. The eventual champion Colts were 9-3. The Chicago Bears were 8-4. The San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers finished both 7-5. So you had 4 teams right up there battling it out. Now the Giants, they had their division was a little bit easier, shall we say. The Giants had the best defense points per game wise. I think they gave about 170 points. Excuse me, and they were 10-2, and they had the best overall record. And they won their division by 3 games. The Eagles and the Browns both finished 7-5. The Giants were 10-2. So the Giants, they lost a tough one to the Steelers at Yankee Stadium, and then they lost Norm Van Brocklin must have gone hog wild on them. They gave up 7 touchdowns. But you'll notice here, the Giants defense gave up 10, 7, 14, 14, 3, 3, 7, 6. Yeah. So very, very stingy defense. But, they pretty much had things, I don't want to say, I certainly never want to say locked up, but, they beat the Browns 10-6. Then they killed the Browns 48-7 here. So they actually won by 3 games. They're interesting also is that when the Giants beat the Packers, in Bangor, Maine, 14-0. I think this is the only time that the Giants beat Vince Lombardi. And the Giants and the Packers, while Vince Lombardi was coaching, faced off against each other quite a bit, but the Packers always won, except for this year. But this game here in Bangor, Maine, was the first ever professional football game played in the state of Maine. And Giants would win 14-0. If you look at where Bangor, Maine is, it is like out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, but the 12 was a 12,000 fans showed up. So it was a nice showing. That the stands looked pretty much packed. It was Garland Street Field. But so the Giants, Giants were had a very good season. Unfortunately, they could not. They made it back to the championship game. It was back-to-back Giants Colts 58-59, but the Giants couldn't get the revenge on the Colts that they were looking for after they lost that obviously one of the greatest games played. One of the more exciting games, one of the more important games, maybe not the best overall well-played games because there were a lot of turnovers. Frank Gifford fumbled the ball like crazy. It was just, but one of the certainly more important games, one of the very more exciting games because it went to overtime. Johnny Unitas drove the Colts down in the final couple minutes of the game just to tie it up with a field goal. So it's very, very, very exciting game. But as you see here, the Giants will lose 31-16 to the Colts in the championship game. The game was played at Yankee Stadium. So let's go to Wikipedia here. Now this was like Yankee Stadium 1 because they did all kind. They did a lot of renovations to the old Yankee Stadium, but then they obviously put up another Yankee Stadium. But this one here, and the Giants, obviously playing in Yankey Stadium, 1956 was the first year that they went in the Yankee Stadium. So this was only the Giants' fourth year they called Yankee Stadium home. From 1925 to 1955, they played at the Polo Grounds. All right, share screen. We'll go to Wikipedia here. There we go. Now this says Yankee Stadium 1923, where it's like the first. It's if I read everything here, we'd be here for about 4.5 months. So I'm not going to read everything. But if you'll see Yankee Stadium 1923, this is like the original one. The original Yankee Stadium was located in the Bronx. It was the home of the Yankees from 1923 to 2008, except for 74 and 75 when it was renovated. Now, during those years, 74 and 75, actually, that's when the Giants were there from 56 to the first 2 games of 1973. They beat the Houston Oilers, because they were called the Houston Oilers back then, 34-14. And then the following week after that, they would final game the Giants ever played at Yankee Stadium. They would tie the Eagles. Pete Gogolak ran onto the field pretty much as time was expiring, and pretty much they snapped the ball right about the time that the ref blew the whistle that the game was over. Gogolak kicked the field goal, tied the game up, and the Giants ran off the field. They were 1-0-1, and of course they would finish the season 2-11-1. But so Yankee, it was ran there for a long time, long time. All right, history. The Yankees had played at the Polo Grounds in Upper Manhattan since 1913, sharing the venue with the Giants, the New York Baseball Giants. However, relationships between the two teams were rocky, with the Giants harboring resentment toward the Yankees. The Yankees had been looking for a new and permanent venue since at least 1909. So, for the 1920 season, the Yankees acquired star slugger Babe Ruth. In his first year with his new team, the Yankees drew 1.3 million fans to the Polo Grounds, outdrawing the Giants. By the middle of 1920, the Giants had issued an eviction notice to the Yankees, which was soon rescinded. In 1921, the Yankees won their first American League pennant, but lost the then best of 9 to the Giants in 8 games. All 8 games were played at the Polo Grounds. How crazy is that, huh? 1923 to 73. Yankee Stadium officially opened on Wednesday, April 18th, 1923, with the Yankees' first home game against the Boston Red Sox. Everything smelled of fresh paint, fresh plaster, and fresh grass. Wow. There's a little picture here. That is, interestingly, right? a pre-renovation Yankee Stadium in 1959. So, but that's 1959. Right? That's the year of this game. That was a baseball game, but that's what it looked like in 1959. Then in 1974 they had renovations. So the Yankees played their season in 1973. The Giants were able to play the first couple of games because I guess the Yankees season was still going on. But after the second week, the Giants played in the Yale Bowl. That was their home. The rest of 73, all of 74, they played Shea Stadium in 75. And in 76, they got their own stadium. But in 74 and 75, the Yankee Stadium was being renovated. So the Yankees, I don't want to play in games in Shea Stadium where the Mets played. Yankee Stadium closed for renovation on September 30th, 1973. The Yankees played their home games in 74 and 75 at Shea Stadium. NFL Giants played their last Yankee Stadium game on September 23rd, which was a tie against the Eagles. Then they went to the Yale Bowl for the rest of all of 73 and all of 74. And then he played in Shea Stadium in 75 and then the new Giants Stadium in 76. And then, of course, after years of speculation that the Yankees would build a new stadium to replace Yankee Stadium, construction began on August 16, 2006, with a groundbreaking ceremony across the street. Yankees played their final two seasons in the stadium in 2007 and 2008 while the new venue was being built. So, after the final game of Yankee Stadium history was played on September 21, 2008, public tours of Yankee Stadium continued until November 23rd, 2008. So, and there's a monument. Monument Park featured monuments and plaques dedicated to Yankee greats. There was obviously a lot of things that got played there. Obviously, baseball. Baseball was played there. All-star games were played there. Obviously, the final game was played there. No kidding. Collegiate baseball was played there. The Cape Cod League. Wow. Boxing. College football. What is Georgia over here? It is right. Georgia Tech at Penn State. Yankee Stadium in 1925, which just happened to be the first year the Giants were in existence. A lot of big games like Army, some of the big ones, maybe Army, Navy, but also Notre Dame and Army will play at Yankee Stadium. And of course, then we got professional football. The New York Yankees in the American Football League, the first American Football League in 1926, played their games there. Called the Yankee Stadium. They were called the Yankee Stadium. But the Giants were there, obviously, from 56 to 73. Giants played their first two home games at Yankee Stadium in 1973, concluding their tenancy on September 20, after a 23-23 tie against the Eagles. Soccer was there. I mean, just all kinds of things were there. I mean, ice hockey was there. I mean, the Winter Classic. I mean, all kinds of stuff. No, I got some pictures. I mean, I said if I read everything about Yankee Stadium, it would be here for another 3 years. I mean, just the history is just absolutely crazy. It's a shame, but it just goes to show. I mean, because you think about like Wrigley Field and like Fenway Park, they're still there. They get maybe modernized or renovated, but they're still there. I mean, I don't know. You kind of makes you wonder why couldn't they do the same thing with the original Yankee Stadium? All right, share screen. I said I got where we at here? Oh yeah, we got one of the most famous games of all time, Yankee Stadium here, right? I mean, how what a obviously what a sore sight this is because I'm a Giant fan to see Alan Amici run it into the end zone. Johnny Unitas looking on for the game-winning touchdown, 58 championship game. But I mean, just look at the background. I mean, here we go. I got this picture here with Steve Myra kicking the game-tying field goal. Right, the crowd in the back here with I mean, right, highest octane flying whatever that is, premium, regular, fly national, Tilden, whatever that is, I don't know, dollar looks like I don't know. I mean, just unbelievable. And this picture here with Johnny U throwing the ball. The 58 championship game. I mean, yeah. Here's Myra once again lining up for the game, tying field goal. Here's a picture from behind Johnny Unitas throwing the ball down the field. Got Sam Huff over here. Plenty more there. I mean, you can literally, if you got Parker here, that might be Parker. You got Moore, you got Unitas, you got Sam Huff. You literally have, I don't know where Andy Robustelli's around here somewhere, but literally I can almost pretty much pick out 4 Hall of Famers in this one picture here, and that doesn't include I can't it doesn't include where Raymond Berry's at. It doesn't include where Emlyn Tunnell's at. It doesn't include Andy Robustelli. I mean, just crazy how many Hall of Famers won. I guess the photo that was colorized, I guess. But I mean, this is pretty much that was pretty much the grass. It was just a bunch of dirt, bunch of dirt. Let's see here. Let's see. Okay, let's go. I got pictures of what Yankee Stadium looks like, especially with the configuration of the football field in there. And then we'll get on with the game. All right. Once again, please forgive me. I have 37,000 tabs open up here. Oh, this might be it. Okay. Yeah, there we go. All right. Giant hit, just now, obviously, it's different because nowadays, the stadiums are more like a bowl. Everything's, most of them are pretty much all the same height or all the way around. Some of them have a little, the configuration's a little bit different and all and everything, but this is, that would be right there. But let's see, this is December 6, 1959. Giants and Browns clash. Here's Frank Gifford running against the Browns here. That was a big game right there. You got here's one picture here. We got the NY in the end zones there. Right. See, I mean, just different because you got right here the people right on the field and people back here, especially if you're in the upper deck or whatever. You're pretty far away. People close over here. People very close here. This looks like where Steve Myra was kicking, maybe. Right. Once again here, right, the NY in the end zone. As I said, this looks like this right where Steve Myra was kicking into the stands over here. You can see the NY is a little, it might have been a little bit different each time. Let's see, do we have anything else here? Here's a kind of a color photo. Geez, let's see if I open it up. Nope. Let's see if I can expand it at all. Yeah, there you go. I don't even know who this is. There's kind of a color photo right there. Oh, there you go. All right. So I don't know what this was. I see the checkered end zones. Once again, you can kind of see. Oh, here we go. There's a nice, A nice view here. Giants and Yankee Stadium. Once again, I don't know, no idea at all, who they're playing here, but some teams, were close, but I mean, other one, kind of far away, especially if you're over here, they're all the way down the other end over there. But I mean, some of the seats were rather close. It's just that obviously the history and all and everything. It's just super spectacular. But it was just a fantastic, place. I said that when I first started watching football with the Giants, that's where they played at, and it was just, that. Then they went away to the Yale Bowl and all of that. But that's my heart's always in Yankee Stadium there, because once again I'm a old time fart, as you can tell. All right, so let's go here. Let's I got 3 articles, so that it should take us a little while. Now in just interest, like in New York, there's articles on the Giants and all, but it's like there's just some other like Green Bay. They do a phenomenal job. Once again, my ace in the hole is always the Green Bay Press Gazette. They cover the Packers. They always do a phenomenal job. I mean, the New York newspapers, they cover the Giants, but it's like, it's not as impressive as some of these other papers. But we'll start off with the Daily News, which always has some pictures in it, so that's cool. New York Daily News. So let's share our screen, and we'll go to the November 2nd, 1959 edition of the Daily News. 67,837 see the Giants defense demolished the Packers 20-3. It was the Giants really shut down the Packers in this game. Really, their defense really shut them down. Now this is interesting. I don't know offhand if this is the same end zone or not. Don't know, but this is goal view. Max McGee punts Packers out of second period trouble during yesterday's battle with New York. With the Giants at Yankee Stadium. McGee's kick at Green Bay from behind its own goal line. Now, interestingly, I said, I don't know if this is the actual goal end zone or not, but this is 59 to 62 championship game was played at Yankee Stadium. Max McGee would go back to punt into his own end zone. His punt was blocked by the Rich Barnes. The Giants would recover, score a touchdown. Those were the only points that the Giants scored. So it's just kind of interesting that Max McGee kicking out of the end zone, and he would have a punt blocked in the championship game, resulting in 7 points for the Giants. But once again, it's also interesting, the Packers starting. It just goes to show you there was not, they don't have. I'm the long snapper. That's all I do. It wasn't like that back then. I just punt. That's all I do. I just punt. No, that's not the way it was back then. You needed all hands on deck, right? So you had their wide receiver was their punter, right? All right. The Giants offense, minus the services of the great Frank Gifford, stumbled and bumbled yesterday, but the defense committed mayhem on the poor Packers before another tremendous turnout of 67,837 at Yankee Stadium. Squelching the Green Bay attack with rock'em sock'em tactics, the New York defenders set the stage for an early touchdown, then smothered the enemy runners and aerialists the rest of the way for a 20-3 verdict that enabled the Giants to remain undisputed leaders of the NFL's Eastern Division. It was guys like Andy Robustelli, Jim Cabbage, Rosie Greer, Dick Modulewski, Sam Huff, Cliff Livingston, and Harlan Svari who deserved the major share of the crowd's applause. They played as though someone on the Packers had insulted them, and someone, it developed, had done just that. Coach Vince Lombardi, Jim Lee Howell's former assistant and now boss at Green Bay, had slighted the Giant defense by calling his Packer linebackers the superior performers. Perhaps he hadn't meant to say it, or maybe he was misquoted, but that hardly helped his unfortunate players. The renewal of the ancient rivalry, which was deadlocked at 14 games each, with two cities going into yesterday's duel, wasn't past the midway mark of the first period when the defense handed the ball to the offense on the Green Bay 3-yard line. Two great plays brought this happy situation about. First, Rosie Brown, an offensive tackle who plays both ways on occasion, hoofed downfield under a Don Chandler punt to ground the ball on the 3. On the next play, the ball was knocked out of the hands of Packer halfback Don McElhenney by Harlan Sparry, with Dick Modulewski making the retrieve. Yeah, Roosevelt Brown, the dude, he would play on the goal line. Sometimes he was on the goal line defense. I mean, the dude was just like, he was built like a Greek god. I mean, it was like a V shape. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. He a Hall of Famer, drafted in the 27th round of the 1953 draft. I mean, the guy was unbelievable. Alex Webster, who performed nobly as he took up the slack for the injured Gifford, slanted off left tackle for the first of his 2 touchdowns, and the Giants had the lead with only 6 minutes, 35 seconds elapsed in the game. Big Alex had himself a better than fair day on offense as he caught 6 passes from Charlie Connolly for 66 yards and packed the pigskin for 23 yards on 8 carries. He accounted for 12 points, and Pat Summerall, the place-kicking specialist, well, Summerall was also an end, too, needed be, tallied the other 8 on 2 booming 49-yard field goals and a brace of extra point boots. 2 extra points. Despite Webster's feats and a solid performance by Gifford's sub, rookie Joe Morrison, who gained 38 yards on 11 runs and caught 4 passes, the Giants' attack sputtered and stuttered. Both teams did not do much offensively, as we'll see the stats. It never did generate a touchdown on its own, the tally in the third quarter being set up by an interference call against the Packers. The rival offense showed nothing as the Packers, who were away to such a grand beginning this season, suffered their third straight defeat. There we got the starting lineups: Max McGee. There's the left tackles, the left guard, center Jim Ringo, right guard, right tackle, right end. Now, what this is also, this is when they say that the left end, they also mean the left end on defense too, meaning Borden. The left tackle and Masters, but the left tackle on defense was Hanner. The left guard was Fuzzy Thurston, but the left guard, I guess, they're calling it on defense would be Dan Curry. Ringo was the center. Right guard, they got Nitschke over here. So, defense, the right tackle was Forrest Gregg, but also the right tackle was Henry Jordan on defense. Gary Knafelk was the right end. Quinlan was the right end on their defensive line. Quarterback was McCann. Halfback was Horning. The left, maybe, their second guys in the secondary was Tennell, Freeman, Greminger. Yeah, the fullback was Lou Carpenter, and Jim Taylor got a couple carries in there. We'll come back to this page here, but they suffered their third. We're going to page 23, so I got to go a few pages here. Oh, there we go. My bad. Third straight setback. Coach Lombardi gave up on his quarterback, Lamar McCann, who is playing back to his old Chicago Cardinal form, and went most of the way with Joe Francis. And they still didn't even put Bart Starr in there. It was the second-year man from Oregon State who engineered the Packer field goal booted from the 29 by ex-Notre Damer Paul Horning. So they had Anthony or Batelli, I believe it was, They had Francis, they had McCann, they had Bart Starr, and they let Bertelli go. So they kept Francis, they kept McCann, and they kept Bart Starr. But the final 5 games of the season, Bart Starr would be in there. Position for the kick was gained via 2 beautiful passes from Francis to halfback Don McElhaney, one good for 24 yards and the other for 23. Except for another brief offensive flash near the end of the second period when more Francis flips set up another field goal attempt by Horning, one which bounced off the right goalpost. The Packers showed nothing. They couldn't get out of their own way throughout the second half. The statistics showed them gaining only 69 yards on the ground and 112 through the air. That was by 69 yards so far this season, by far the Packers' worst on the ground. On passes, 112 yards through the air. On passes from McCann and Francis, they completed 7 of 26. So, like, I don't know, 28%, something like that, completion. That's horrible. Summerall hoisted the first of his 2 successful 3-pointers at 12:21 of the second. He missed 2 others, though, from 53 and from 47 yards, and the Giants held their 10-3 bulge until the 2:38 mark of the third period when Webster, on a handoff from Connolly, slashed 7 yards on a cutback play over his own left tackle. The drive started from the second half kickoff after rookie George Scott, who gives Giants fans the jitters with his butterfingers, coming up with a 32-yard run back. From their own 33, the Giants rolled to pay dirt on Connolly's pitches. He clicked with 14 of 29 to Webster, Morrison, and Bob Schnelker, but it was an interference call that was the big gainer in the spin. Packer defender Bob Freeman was tagged for the violation on Alex Webster, and it gave the Giants a first down on the 7. Webster took it over from there. That was it. Lombardi benched Francis and put McCann back into the game. Wow. Then he jerked McCann and went back to Francis again. It was all in vain. Kind of wonder why he didn't put Starr in there to see what he could do. But that would be coming up soon enough. And then once he put Bart Starr in there, the rest would be, as they say, history. Right? The defense had caught up with the offense, or at least the Giant defense had caught up with the best the Packers had to offer. Summerall notched field goal number 2 at the 11:18 mark of the third period after setting it up himself by snaring a pass. From there, the rival defenses took turns smashing his offense. Giant defender Dick Nolan was loose for 33 yards with a pilfered Francis pass in the 4th. But the Giants couldn't get themselves a first down from the Packer 27 and had to turn over the ball. Wow. Now you see here, right? I mean, it's some of the stats here, right? Giants had 15 first downs. The Packers had only 9. The Giants only had 144 yards passing, only had 79 yards rushing. But the Packers had 69 yards rushing and 112, so it was 181 total yards. 7 out of 26 passed, 15 out of 31. Passes intercepted by 1 here. I guess that's 1 there. Packers had a punt 10 times. They lost 2 fumbles. So at the very end, it appeared as though the Packers might get a consolation touchdown. Don Heinrich had relieved Connolly on the mound and was on his aerial attempts. One of his aerial attempts was batted into the air. And I think you'll be able to see this. There's pictures of this here. And Jim Temp gathered it on the 8, where Webster nailed them. On the very next play, though, the Giants defense knocked Jim Taylor loose from the ball, Sam Huff retrieving to wind up with the same act which had opened the show. What do we got here? Injury list. Here we go. Giants' victory of the Packers yesterday was easy but painful. Bob Schnelker, offensive end, was kicked in the back in the third quarter and taken to St. Elizabeth Hospital for x-rays and overnight observation. The injury was in the pelvic area. Defensive halfback Dick Lynch went home feeling dizzy. He said he was punched over the right eye and had a lump to prove it. Well, Rosie Brown limped off with a bruised shin, and Charlie Connolly sprained an ankle, but those were incidental. All right. And we got there. Okay, maybe on there. Hold on. There we go. Giants bell Packers 20-3. There we go. A pack of puzzled Packers. Alex Webster, the Giants' leading ground pounder since Frank Gifford is out of things, plows into Emlyn Tunnell. Right here. His former teammate, actually, Emlyn Tunnell was on the Giants in 1958. He went over to the Packers with Vince Lombardi. Yesterday, in one of his 2 touchdown bursts, Green Bay defender Henry Jordan is out of the play, and Bob Dylan, number 44, isn't even trying. That would be him here. Not even trying. Vince Lombardi, their former backfield coach, a rough welcome back to the stadium, smacking the boys from Green Bay 23 to tighten their grasp on the first place in the Eastern Division. Here we go. Paul Hornung trying to make a reception here. Does he? Dick Lynch chases Paul Hornung of the Packers, but former Notre Dame all-everything cradles pass for an 8-yard gain to the Green Bay 44 in the first period. Jim Patton breaks up a first period and pass intended for Max McGee, the Packers end. All right. And the Browns beat the Colts 38-31. Jim Brown had 5 touchdowns. Unbelievable. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. Is this it? Where are we at? Lombardi lauds Giants for storm defense. The Giants took the Packers by storm yesterday. The word storm is the name for their type of defense the locals used to harry the Green Bay offense. Vince Lombardi, visiting coach, called it the best defensive game I've ever saw the Giants play. They used the storm defense. As an ex-Giant coach just removed to Green Bay this year, he knows all the intricacies of the New York style of play. They don't stand pat on defense, he explained. They're always changing. I'll admit this was our poorest offensive game of the year. The Packers' record is now 3-3. But maybe their defense had something to do with it. The Giants line stormed the Green Bay passers and ball carriers right from the start and never stopped pressing. That is why the Packers wound up with the abysmal low figures of 69 yards gained rushing and only 112 yards gained passing. Sam Huff, Jim Ketkavage, Dick Modulewski, Rosie Greer, Andy Robustelli, Cliff Livingston, and Swede or Harlan Safari, the core of the defense, actually won the game. They did such a great job that the 4 secondary defenders had a good chance to cover pass receivers, said Coach Jim Lee Howe of the Giants. Giants defenders were somewhat stirred up before things started. Incidentally, Lombardi had said that his own defensive players, particularly the linebackers, would play better than the Giants. Ooh. While they were taping up their legs and donning pads beforehand, Robustelli, Safari, and company were talking things over, and they promised to show Lombardi he was wrong, and they did. They have a better defense than the Colts, Lombardi admitted. Once they get you in a corner, they don't let you get out. Howell conceded that without halfback and Kyle Rote, Kyle Rote's one of the best ends the Giants ever had, and obviously Hall of Fame Mr. Everything, Frank Gifford, didn't play. The Giants' offense figured to be off and that the defensive team had to do a big job. So the Giants had 2 of their best players weren't even on offense, weren't even playing for them. The defense and the kickers, they did it. He enthused. Chandler's punting and the good play by Brown set up the first touchdown. The defensive team got the ball on its 3-yard line by making them fumble. Then Summerall kicked the 2 long field goals. The other Giant TD, Alex Webster's second of the game, was set up by a pass interference penalty and turned out to be the superfluous. Lombardi incidentally conceded that it was true interference on Webster, who was grabbed as he tried to cut for a pass on the Packers' 7-yard line. So another day and another victory, with the defensive Giants once more taking the deserved bows. The stadium ground crew worked all night to restore the field to playing condition after Saturday's Army Air Force game in the rain. I'm not looking to take bows, but these guys did a hell of a job, Stadium Superintendent Jim Thompson said as he toured the layout before yesterday's game. They started right after the Army game and worked until 9:15 this morning. Wow, he said. We had to remove a huge water-filled hole between the 10 and 40-yard lines on the side of the field toward the bleachers. Then we laid new turf as best as we could. Wow. Giants made a player switch at defensive halfback. They released Don Suthrin, rookie from Ohio State, and moved in Bill Stitz, a 6-year veteran who had played with Detroit, Frisco, and Washington. The Skins released him last week. Stitz is a 27-year-old 6-footer who weighs 195 pounds. He's from UCLA. Southern, a dejected figure, sat in civvies on a team bench. Well, he had suited up before getting the bad news. Giants sold temporary sideline seats, which had been erected for Saturday's game. Attendance Saturday was cut to an actual turnstile total of around about 60,000 by the weather, but 67,500 tickets were actually sold. All right. Okay, now we'll go to the New York Times. So let's go to the Monday, November 2nd, 1959 edition of the New York Times. Giants beat Packers as Webster scores twice before 67,837 here. Here's McCann, I believe, right? Number 70, handing off to Don McElhaney, his right halfback during the first quarter of the game against the Giants. Here's the Storm defense, right? Or kind of like the blitz that they were kind of. This is the defensive strategy that led the Giants to their first touchdown. Harlan Safari, who was to have drifted to the outside, switched assignments with Andy Robistelli and went inside to make the tackle. The Packer ball carrier, Don McElhaney, fumbled, and the Giants recovered and scored on the following play. So what we had here, right? We had Andy Robistelli here. Usually he kind of crashes in. A lot of times you'll see him. He goes around the tackle here. A lot of times I've seen whenever he makes sack, he made a lot of sacks in his career. He'll burst around the tackle and he'll make a tackle. Sack the quarterback or whatever. But here he went out wide, right, drawing this guy. So he covered. It was, I guess this is either Modulewski or Rosie Greer. Carpenter, the fullback, took the other tackle. Whoops. And you had the guard here pulling, trying to get Safari. But he went out here, had a little bit of a gap here, and Safari burst in through here. And I guess he got to McElhaney before maybe this is Kramer here. Pulled, was able to get to him. So, but all right, here we go. Twice yesterday, before 67,837 fans at Yankee Stadium, Alex Webster scored short yardage touchdowns for the Giants, and twice Pat Summerall booted long yardage field goals against the Packers. Add a couple of routine conversions by Summerall, and here and there a completed pass by Charlie Connolly, and that just about accounted for the victorious offenses that New Yorkers beat the visitors from Green Bay 20-3. Giants have a pet name for the play on which Webster tallied, first from the 3-yard line in the first quarter, then from the 7 in the third. They call it 28 sweep, and it has long been a bread and butter maneuver for them. However, 28 sweep, successful though it was only one factor in the Giants' 5th triumph of the year in the Eastern Conference of the National Football League. Of course, the Giants continue to lead their division with only an early season setback charged against them, so they're 5-1 after this win. The Giants never trailed. Even more than offense, defense made the difference in this encounter, in which the Giants never trailed. When Green Bay's defenders hit hard, the New York defense hit harder. Rush, surrounded, tackle harder. Andy Robustelli, Sam Huff, Harlan Safari, Dick Modzelewski, Cliff Livingston, and Rosie Greer up front, and Dick Nolan, Dick Lynch, and Lyndon Crow in the secondary were standout. Tom Bettis and Bill Forrester of the Packers were stout performers for the club, now coached by Vince Lombardi, but they were outnumbered. The Giants have about 20 pet names for their defensive plays. Blitz Wanda is one. Storm Sarah is another. Red Dog Mag. Still another. All are designed to put pressure on the passer or to harass the ball carrier. Only rarely did the Packers find it going easy. Lamar McCann, the first-string quarterback, and Joe Francis, his understudy. They don't even talk about Bart Starr. It's unbelievable, huh? Were in trouble all afternoon. Paul Hornung and Don McElhaney, the runners, also found the going difficult. 2 or 3 times each year, at least, the defense wins a game for the Giants. Certainly it did yesterday. Charlie Connolly, the 38-year-old quarterback, was the first to concede that point. Jim Lee Howell, the local head coach, agreed. Forget the statistics. These show that the Packers, with their varied attack featuring a wing T, double wing, and slot, gained 181 yards overall. The Giants only picked up 223. That wasn't much more, of which 144 were on the ground. Actually, this game, Green Bay's first here in some 7 years, was not that close. So they haven't played in New York for 7 years. Wow. Wrote in for one play. Even without Frank Gifford, their best left halfback, who is out with an injury, and with Kyle Rote, their best end, in for only just one play, the Giants had too much for the Packers. Connolly's aerials to Webster, Bob Schnelker, and Joe Morrison, and the running of Webster and Morrison gained the upper hand for the New Yorkers. Green Bay invaded New York territory only frequently. One of the times this happened was early in the second period, when Francis took over from McCann and passed the Packers to the 22. The Packers were stalled there, and Lombardi, who used to direct the Giants' offense, ordered Hornung to settle for 3 points via a 29-yard field goal. He did. That, though, was long after the Giants had taken the lead, and it was to be Green Bay's only tally. Hornung later attempted a field goal from the 14-yard line, a 14-yard field goal. But the ball hit the right upright and bounced away. That's when you just know it ain't your day. A 14-yard field goal. The Packers were going nowhere. The Giants were following suit most of the afternoon. The rugged defense on the visitors probably had something to do with that. But that defense was not quite so rugged as the New Yorkers, and the victors proved it early. Chandler punts 55 yards. Don Chandler, the ace punter of the Giants, he was a very good punter, who would later on join the Packers, and he was on the Packers. Don Chandler was on the Packers for their first 2 Super Bowl wins. So Don Chandler, the ace punter of the Giants, kicked one 55 yards in the opening period. Roosevelt Brown, for all his 6'3" and 245 pounds. I mean, that was a tackle back then, but he was built like a Greek god. I tell you what unbelievable athlete he was. He was the first Giant to reach the ball, downing it on the 3. The Packers were in a jam because when McElhaney carried on the first play, he was hit hard by Harlan Safari and he fumbled. Dick Modzelewski recovered for the home side, and that was the turning point. 28 sweep, Connolly called, and Webster did, with Mel Triplett and Jack Stroud leading the way. Webster skirted wide to the left and negotiated the 3 yards into the end zone. Summerall added the point. Summerall was short with a 53-yard field goal attempt in the second quarter. Undaunted, he succeeded with a 49-yarder later on. He was to click with another 49-yarder in the third period and to miss with a 47-yarder in the fourth. But he did other good work, including catching of a pass. Over there? Yeah, okay, that's just the lineups there. All right. Summerall's first field goal made the score 10-3 at halftime. The Giants made their best showing on offense in the third period. Connolly's passes moved them to the 24. The next aerial to Webster was ruled good because of the interference, and it was first down on the 7. 28 sweep, Connolly called again. And again, Webster was ready and able. With Triplett and Stroud providing the blocking, this time Webster headed wide to the left, then cut back over tackle. I saw someone sitting there, so I just cut back, Webster later explained. I had that option. Connolly twisted his right ankle and left the game in the fourth period. Don Heinrich replaced him, and one of his passes intercepted by Jim Temp allowed the Packers a scoring chance on the 8th. However, on the first play, Jim Taylor fumbled, Huff recovered on the 4, and that was that. Bob Schnelker was injured. Schnelker suffered a bruised pelvis and was taken to St. Elizabeth's Hospital. Tom Scott's left thumb was fractured. If I'm not mistaken, Scott might have been the one to recover. I'd have to go back a little bit. Scott might have been the one to recover the punt that Max McGee had blocked in the 62 championship game. I'd have to check on that, though. But Tom Scott's left thumb was fractured. It was placed in a cast by Dr. Francis Jr. Sweeney. Dr. Francis J. Sweeney. I'm sorry. There was other injuries, but none so serious as these two. A couple of fellows' tempers flared during the game. Imagine that. But the real fights were those in which a number of fans engaged after the contest. The special police had their work cut out for them. All right, so we got this as looking on, but this is the only time he would ever once again go into Yankee Stadium and have that look. He would, every time from then on he would visit Yankee Stadium, he would come out victorious. All right, so we got this here. Safari's blitz of the ball carry puts New York's on victory path. Harlan Safari, a giant linebacker who would rather blitz than eat, sleep, or miss preseason practice, whispered the words "Blitz Wanda" to Andy Robustelli in the first quarter at Yankee Stadium. This defensive strategy resulted in the Giants' first touchdown against the Packers. It was the only 6-pointer the New Yorkers would require in their 20-3 triumph. As every armchair football fan knows, blitzing or red dogging are the terms used for linebackers who like to storm through their own defensive line, penetrate the offense, and upset the ball carrier before a play can get underway. At the time of Safari's call, the Packers had a first down on their own 3-yard line. In their defensive huddle before the play, the Giants decided that Robustelli, the weak side right end, would crash. Safari, who was stationed behind him, the end, as the weak side linebacker, was to protect the outside. As the Packers deployed in T formation with the flanker strong to the right or the side away from Safari, Harlan had a thought. He ran to Robustelli and whispered, "Blitz Wanda." To Robustelli, who was paid to understand such things, this meant that Safari would do the blitzing and that Andy would have the outside responsibility. On the play shown in the accompanying diagram, Lamar McCann, the Packer quarterback, pivoted and faked a handoff to Lou Carpenter. The fullback who carried out this dive play faked through the line. Don McElhaney, the right halfback, delayed 2 counts, then sprinted to his left to receive this handoff from McCann on the cross-buck maneuver. As the play developed, that was the one thing. He delayed 2 counts, and while he's delaying 2 counts to going to get the ball, Safari's cutting through the line and just upsetting everything. As the play developed, Robustelli drifted outside, luring Green Bay's left tackle with him. That left a big hole for Harlan Safari's blitzing. Safari wrapped his arms around McElhaney just as the runner took the handoff from McCann. McElhaney fumbled, and Dick Modzelewski, the Giants' left tackle, recovered. On the next play, Alex Webster swept 3 yards around left end, and the Giants win the front for good. In the dressing room after the game, Safari explained why the defense play was called Blitz Wanda. We couldn't find another girl's name that began with W to designate the weak side linebacker, Safari said. Storm Sarah means the strong side, I'm thinking, right? Harlan said is the term used when the Giants' strong side linebacker is the blitzer. There you go. All right, and finally, try to hurry up. We're going to go to the Green Bay Press-Gazette. All right, they have a usually decent amount of coverage here, so try to hurry up with that because we're already at an hour now. All right, then let's see. Okay, so we'll go to the November 2nd, 1959 edition of the Green Bay Press-Gazette. Let's try to hurry through this here. Giants blitz off key Packer offense and win. Oh, let me refresh. Win 20-3. McCann injury fouls Bay's attack and timing. Here we go. Here's a what we got here. Cause and effect. These two photographs demonstrate on how early the fumble beat the Packers. The upper picture shows the loose ball in the air as Don McElhaney on the ground fumbled on his 3-yard line in the first quarter. So he's I guess it might be him right here, and there's the ball. And there you go. Dick Modzelewski's going to boom pounce on it, right? Oh, right. Number 77 is going to pounce on it. The lower picture shows Alex Webster bolting into the end zone for a touchdown. Right there. There you go. And then I want to, let's see, somewhere here. I think it was here. I think it was this. Oh, here we go. Here's the interception. The interception that the Packers had, okay, and got that down to the 8-yard line, but then they fumbled. Jim Taylor fumbled on the next play, I think they said, if I remember correctly, and there goes their shot here. It's a futile interception. Jim Temp's interception of a pass by quarterback Tom Heinrich. Right? Guess he got hit. It looks like the ball just slipped out of his hands or whatever. That's a pathetic-looking pass. But gave the Pack a chance for a score in the closing minutes. Here, Temp 82 juggles the pass. His fingertips on the ball, the 23-yard line, as Bill Forrester belts Heinrich. Jim got a good block from Dane Curry, number 58. Right, number 58. And ran to the 7 before being caught from behind by Alex Webster right here. So somehow Alex Webster made some tackle here. Curry is over here looking at him. Instead of if he turned around and looked at Webster, hey, maybe I'll block you. If he turned around and blocked Webster, maybe Alex doesn't come crashing in here making a tackle. But if they scored, it still wouldn't have mattered. They would have lost 20-10. All right, so let's go back to the first page there. All right, there we go. Packers had enough defense to win most games, but they had no offense in Yankee Stadium Sunday afternoon. I mean, really, the Giants really did not have much going on. A little over 200 yards of total offense. Now, Giants, their best end and their best offensive player, weapon, weren't there, didn't play. So that certainly hurt the Giants. Giants blitz and overran the Bay scoring machine to make off with a bitterly contested 20-3 victory for the largest crowd ever to see Green Bay play the Giants here, 67,831. It was Green Bay's third straight loss, setting the record at 3-3, while the Giants won their fourth in a row for 5-1, reigning at the top of the Eastern Division. The Packers, apparently doing things in threes, now hope to start another trio of 3 straight wins against the Bears in Chicago on Sunday. which would not happen. Okay, there you go. The Giants would be 5-1. So they only had a game lead over these two teams, but by the end of the season, they would be 10-2. The Browns would be 7-5, and the Eagles would be 7-5. Now here's San Fran is 5-1. Baltimore is 4-2. But by the end of the season, San Fran would be 7-5. San Fran would win two out of the final 6 games and would go 2-4. So they kind of fell apart. Baltimore would lose only one more game. Green Bay would lose 2 more games. And the Bears would not lose another game all season. They went from 2-4. It would finish 8-4. They would win the final 6 games of the season. So the failure of the Packers offense was a bitter blow to Packer coach Lombardi, the former Giant offensive mentor, who was coming home for the first time, but it wasn't all New York defense. Starting quarterback Lamar McCain came up with a stiff shoulder, the result of an injury in the Baltimore game, and couldn't throw with any degree of accuracy. That's why they put Francis in there. Just kind of wondering why Bart Starr didn't go in there. Joe Francis relieved McCann in the second quarter and moved the Packer deep into the Giant territory twice, the first of which was converted into Paul Hornung's 28-yard field goal and a 7-3 score. A boot hits the upright. The second time, a few seconds before the half revealed some of the Packers' bad luck, they really didn't get any breaks this day. Hornung's boot from 15 yards out hit the right upright and bounced back onto the playing field from the 15-yard. Well, the other article said it was 14 yards out, but still. Even a 15-yard field goal. Those were the only 2 times the Packers got into Giant territory until the last minute when Jim Temp intercepted Don Heinrich's batted up pass behind the line of scrimmage on the Giant 20. He ran to the 8, but on the first play, Jim Taylor fumbled and Sam Huff recovered on the 5. That was it, the last straw. Actually, the Packers defense, the Giants down to 1 touchdown. The second, and that was set up by a costly interference penalty. Both Giants TDs were scored by Alex Webster. Yes, here we go. We got the pass, and Connolly got injured, and Don Heinrich in there completed 1 of 2, but his other one was intercepted. Packers McCann, Francis completed 5 of 18 for 91 yards. I mean, McCann attempted 8, completed 2. Not very good at all. All right. In the first quarter, Don McElhaney fumbled on the Packers' 3-yard line, the ball being put there by a 55-yard punt by Don Chandler and Dick Modulowski. Little Mo, they used to call him. Recovered. Webster powered over for a 7-0 on the first play. The other TD came on a 67-yard drive at the start of the second half. With first down on the Packer 24, Bob Freeman interfered with Webster, and the Giants had a first down on the 7. Webster poured over from there on the very next play from 7 yards out. The other Giant points came on 2 49-yard field goals by Pat Summerall, both tremendous boots. The first made it 10-3 just before the half. The second made it 20-3 late in the third quarter. And this one here, the 20-3, it was huge because that put 17 points. That's 3 scores. One statistics too. The Packers were defense down to 2 first downs in the second half. So they had 7, I guess, in the first half, 2 first downs in the second half. I mean, they only have 9 first downs for the whole game. I mean, it's tough sledding right there. On a McCann pass to Boyd Dowler for 14 yards and a Francis pass to Dowler for 7 and Taylor's 12-yard run, Jim was making his first run on the foot he burned in a home accident on October 5th. He burned the bacon grease, burned the heck out of his foot. Now, he also had a bad burn on his hand, but you could run if you tape it up or just try to carry the ball. I'm not sure if it was which hand he carried the ball with normally, but I mean, you could carry the ball, if you protect it well enough, you can wrap your hand up or whatever. But it was trying to run on a foot that was badly burned. That was the difficult part. Giants won the statistics too. They only had 15 first downs to 9 for the Packers, 79 yards gained on the ground, which is not a lot, to 69. They had 144 air yards to only 112 for the Packers. Max McGee had to punt the ball 10 times, showing the toughness of the Giant defense. The Packers started by grinding out a first down after receiving the opening kickoff. Lou Carpenter and Horning ran 11 yards on 3 attempts to the Bay 33. On the first play, on the next series, Don McElhaney ran 3 yards. Then it happened. Carpenter lost 6 and Horning lost 5. Punt. The Packers forced Chandler to punt quicker than that in one series, but Chandler got off a high boot that Carpenter couldn't field. The ball was stopped from going into the end zone by Roosevelt Brown on the 3-yard line. Then came McElhaney's fumble. On a slant off left guard. He coughed up the ball when it hit by Harlan Safari. Webster made it 7-0. The defense took over and McGee punted 3 times and Chandler once as the game moved into the second quarter. The Giants, starting on their own 30, strung together 2 first downs by Bill Forrester, but Bill Forrester caught King for a 6-yard loss and Bobby Dillon batted down Connolly's long pass in the end zone. Francis takes over. Francis took over at this point for the first time in a league game this season, and Taylor went to fullback. On 2nd and 6, Joe hurled to McElhaney for 23, and 3 plays later, Francis, on a rollout, dropped the 23-yarder into McElhaney's arms on the Giants' 24. The attack stalled, and Horning kicked the only Bay points. Summerall missed a 52-yard field goal a moment later. Dillon took the short kick on the 2 and returned it to the 12, but Emlyn Tunnell, who was playing his heart against his former teammates, was accused of clipping, putting the ball back on the 5. McGee, punting from his own end zone, punted to Morrison, who fumbled, but, as you might expect this day, it rolled out of bounds. A moment later, Summerall kicked the first of his 49-yard field goals. I mean, sometimes, let's see here. I'm gonna. Yeah, sometimes it goes your way. The fumbles go your way, or sometimes the other team fumbles the ball. It goes out of bounds. It's just all in the luck. But the one thing is like in the 1962 championship game here. Let's see. I gotta. Does it show it here? I'd have to. No, they don't even show. Well, the Giants fumbled the ball. They don't even show it. Oops. That can't add it now. Hold on there. Just to go to show you how the Packers will get paid back. 1962 NFL championship game. I mean, this had a lot to do with that. The Packers were the better team that day. They won. They deserved the win. But, as I said, sometimes, the Giants fumbled 3 times in the championship game. They lost 2 of them. The Packers fumbled 2 times in the 62 championship game. They recovered both of them. Right? The Giants fumbled 3 times. They lost 2 of them. So in the 62 championship game, there were 5 fumbles. The Packers recovered 4 of them. Right? So sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it don't. In this particular game here, the fumbles and everything did not go Packers' way. All right. The big play on the Giants' TD march in the third quarter was a 32-yard pass from Connolly to Webster to the Packer 38. They moved to the 24, Morrison's 5-yard run, and an 8-yard pass to Schnelker. Then came the interference penalty and Webster's TD run. Hank Reminger went into Freeman's spot on the next series and went the rest of the way. After an exchange of punts, McCain went back into action and uncorked a 14-yard pass to Dowler to the Packer 32. But the Giants weren't to be denied. On second down play, McCann was dumped for an 8-yard loss by Andy Robustelli, and on the next play, McElhenney dropped McCann's throw, and McGee punt was almost blocked. After Summerall's next field goal at 11:18 of the third period, the Giants made another move as the quarters changed. But Forrester blasted King back 7 yards, and Bettis untied Connolly's shoestrings with an 8-yard loss, and Summerall tried another field goal, but missing from the 47. The rest of was a punting match. McGee, by the way, averaged 44 yards on 10 kicks, which is pretty darn good. He was their starting wide receiver, and he averaged 44 yards per kick. Don Chandler actually averaged 46 yards on 6 kicks, so they could punt the ball pretty well back then. The Packer loss was a real disappointment for head coach Vince Lombardi. He certainly had a right to expect a better offensive performance, but he didn't use McCann's injury as the trouble, saying, "We were just overpowered on offense. We couldn't move." As to McCann, Vince said, "I never should have started him. McCann injured his shoulder in the Baltimore game, and it was difficult for him to throw at times during the week. It was hurting some in practice Saturday before the game. He seemed to be in trouble on short passes, a couple of which went wide and lost 2 first downs." Jim Lee Howell, the Giants coach, said he was disappointed with his offense, explaining, "We only had one drive all day. We can be lucky Green Bay didn't score some." Howell was enthusiastic about Don Chandler's punting and said, "The one he put on the 3-yard line might have turned the game some toward us." Don McElhenney fumbled at that point, and the Giants turned it into a touchdown. The New York coach said he felt Robustelli and Patton played exceptional games on our defensive platoon. Patton hurt his knee in practice Saturday morning, and we almost died, but he was okay, though. That Green Bay defense sure gave us trouble. Their Red Dogs started to work good in the second half, and I'm anxious to find out why," Howell said. There was a light sprinkle a moment before the kickoff, but the sun soon popped out. Frank Gifford, the Giants ace back, didn't suit up. He talked with Vince on the field during the pregame warm-ups. The Packers were booed something fierce when they took the field. Gifford's replacement, Joe Morrison, ran the ball 11 times for 38 yards and caught 4 passes for 33 yards. Let's see here. All right. Well, let me see. Is there? See if there's anything else here. Sometimes they have little articles about the game, but doesn't look like it. You see here, Jim Brown 5 touchdowns, burst jars the Colts 38-31, 5 touchdown runs. What unbelievable! My goodness. Yeah, I guess that's beep. I guess that's all, folks, for that one. Usually the went too far. When the Packers are at home, the Green Bay Press Gazette has really, really good coverage. But I mean, between those 3 articles there, that was good explanation. I mean, it wasn't a heck of a lot. I mean, it wasn't much offensively went on. I mean, the Giants scored 4 times, 2 of them were field goals. The Packers, the Giants missed a couple field goals. The Packers missed 1 field goal. So, a couple fumbles here. The Packers only scored 1 time. The game was pretty much dominated by the Giants' defense, and Vince Lombardi's return back to New York was not a successful one. However, as I said, from 1960 to 67, okay, when he coached in the Packers, and in 1969, when he was coaching the Redskins, Vince Lombardi would not lose another regular season game to the New York Giants. So that's the way it was on this date. As Vince Lombardi returns to New York, where the Green Bay Packers and the New York Giants played at Yankee Stadium on November 1st, 1959, in pro football's first 50 years. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.